You are getting ready to watch something unique in the entire world.
What if this was a perfect world?
Imagine a world where trans people were completely understood.
Imagine a world where we were respected just for being who we are.
Imagine a world where we are not targets of violence and discrimination.
Imagine a world where radical conservatives didn't use trans issues to try to win elections.
To understand this perfect world, it looks like we will need translation. Good evening and welcome to Translation, the world's first trans show by the community educating our allies. It's 9 p.m. Thursday, July 1st. I'm Tony Lima, CEO of Ariana Center, Trans Latina, Florida. We are proud to sponsor this groundbreaking broadcast coming to you from South Florida to our American and worldwide audience. We need your support. Please help us as this is the first show in the world to include a cast of trans voices. And speaking of those trans voices, let's meet our cast. Let's welcome Misty Eyez. She is the Director of Transgender Services, Women's Services, and Training and Education for SunServe, one of the South Florida's most important LGBTQ plus nonprofit service providers. She is a highly celebrated and award-winning entertainer, MC, and journalist. Good evening, Misty.
Good evening, Tony. I'm so glad to be here. Now, let's welcome Rajee Narinesingh. She is an institutional name made famous on countless reality TV appearances, including E's Botched. She's a transgender activist, actress, spiritualist, author, and outreach advocate for Trans Social, one of the nation's most important trans advocacy organizations. Good evening, Rajee.
Hello! Great to be here. Let's welcome anchor Gordon Woodworth III. They identify as a pagan and is a genderqueer, non-binary Gen Zer. They are currently a data entry and triage specialist at the nonprofit organization Broward House, a non-for-profit social services organization with nearly 30 years of providing services for our community impacted by HIV and other chronic health challenges. Good evening, Gordon.
Good evening. I'm so glad to be here. Let's welcome Ariana Lint, well-known international Latinx trans activist, openly living with HIV, and president and founder for Ariana Center. Ariana Center is one of the most important trans-focused service and advocacy organizations in our nation. The nonprofit focuses on the services for trans women of color, trans men, and gender nonconforming people in Florida, in Puerto Rico, and the South. Ariana is also one of the foremost advocates across the country focused on ending the HIV epidemic. Good evening, Ariana.
Hello, how you doing, everybody? How are you? Welcome to the Thursday, Latino Thursday.
On that note, so good evening again. Let's dive right into translation. At Translation, we will follow an amusing social media trans story. One is #TransLOL. These are tweets, memes, or other interesting moments created by trans people about the trans community. Tonight's Trans People Are Funny #TransLOL is called, Are You Friends? What do you think?
Well, I'm just going to say this right out. I'm not friends with every trans person. I'm not. I mean, we might have a sister/brotherhood,
Sure.
we're trans in common, but we all have our different personalities. Not everyone is going to connect and click.
And we don't all know each other, and that's something that not all nations. But okay, I'm trying to think. First time I went out of the country, I went to Poland, and people are like, "Do you know my cousin? He lives in New York." I'm like, "No." So we don't all know each other, and we're not all friends. And I'm certainly not friends with most of the names on that screen.
But I have a question. So, as a Latino person, as a Latinx person, I always feel when I'm in any kind of space an affinity automatically to my Latinx brethren and
That's
sisters.
called
Of course.
humanity.
Right. No, but I feel like more prone to want to say hello, to want to
A
connect. Is that
connection,
true?
a connection.
Of the trans
Yeah.
community as well?
You notice
Yeah.
that in
Oh,
lunch
yeah.
tables and
Yeah.
everywhere. Like the people that are similar sit together. And I
Yeah.
will say some of my closest friends in my life would not be my friend if we weren't trans.
They weren't trans.
Yeah, like we have social classes, economic differences, language barriers. I would have nothing in common with them, but because we're trans, we have that
Oh my God.
sisterhood.
I was at the market last week and I'm walking down the aisle and I spotted a trans woman.
Yeah.
And I purposely, like when I walked by her, I like smiled and nodded. And I kept going because she just like looked at me. She smiled a little bit, but then she backtracked. She says, "Oh my God, you're trans too." I said, "Yeah, can't you see?" And then we stood in the aisle for about 10 minutes talking and connecting. And she needed some encouragement that day. She had a bad experience before she got to the market at another store. So I was happy to do that. So yeah, I can see, where you'd have like more of an open
Like some
heart.
kind of
When I
connection
see,
already.
when I see trans people, I'm approached to those people and say, "Are you a trans?" I'm ally. I'm
Yeah.
very ally.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm really interested in your perspective. Welcome to our show,
Yes!
Gordon.
Yeah,
Thank you
feel
for
free to
being
speak
here.
up.
So it's the same for non-binary people. There's several people who are non-binary in my life that I have relationships with who have come forward and said to me, "I want to spend more time with you. I want to be friends with you and, create that relationship because I'm surprised to see another person who is non-binary come out and be so vocally open about being non-binary because we're often told that we don't exist." So
It's about that feeling of belonging overall, right?
Yeah.
Like wanting to feel like you have a natural connection with someone.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, well, this time around, you guys, we have a bonus entertainment round with Trans LOL. Do we think trans are funny? Caitlyn Jenner claims she's the victim of transphobia, and many LGBTQ is like, girl, stop. Caitlyn Jenner went on The View and was, well, Caitlyn. She said that she likened herself to Trump, calling him a disruptor and saying, I want to do the same thing. Remember, also refused to say whether he lost the 2020 election. Then Jimmy Kimmel did jokes in his monologue about Caitlyn and said, are you sure that isn't Donald Trump in a Caitlyn Jenner wig? Then Jenner took to Twitter, voicing her outrage, saying, last night, Jimmy Kimmel called me Donald Trump with a wig. He obviously believes that trans women are simply men with wigs on. Where is the outrage from the left or LGBT community? Being woke must be optional if you are a Democrat. That ends her quote. Trans humor, jokes, and Caitlyn Jenner. What do you think?
Oh my God, poor Kate. Okay, so this
Poor
is
Caitlyn.
Well, because this is it. I think because Caitlyn Jenner's experience is very rare when it comes to trans people. I mean, she had the money, she had the resources, she had the notoriety. Most of us, we transitioned rubbing two nickels together. So I think
Literally.
that alone is like a disconnect for the community. And then on top of it, she's Republican, she's a Trumper. And so I think that that's why she feels that way. Like we're not running to her side and supporting her, but I think a lot of it has to do with the disconnect. That there's like this.
Yeah,
We don't
her essence and perspective, right? Because
Right.
she comes from a space of having been a white, very rich man.
And you know what? Honestly, I hate to say this. I think in many cases she still thinks like a white, rich man.
But how
Privileged.
can we run to her
Privilege, absolutely.
side when we are the community that she's protesting against? She's campaigning against us, but yet she wants our support all of a sudden because she's attacked. And he clearly, what's obvious was he was comparing her to Trump because of her politics, not
Yeah.
because she's
Not because of the-
transgender.
But,
Right,
but what
or
happened
wearing
in
a
the,
wig,
in the
yeah.
transgender community is a lot of people, they discriminate Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, they
They
do.
discriminate
Sure,
Caitlyn
they
Jenner
do.
because she don't believe or she don't thinking like us. And we have to respect all the ideologies, all the speech, and all the things about, I have many clients who they are love Donald Trump, and they don't make me separate, or treat different to there.
I just kind of look at them like they're crazy.
I think Caitlyn Jenner don't have the fault to be rich, to be white, and to be, but she's
Yeah.
transgender. So she have a different history, and I know sometimes her comments affect the most vulnerable community as a transgender. But as the most vulnerable community and as a transgender, we have to respect her view of point, how she believes. And also, she have a foundation who help transgender people and give grants to transgender programs, trans kids, whatever she believes. But she give money back. So I think transgender too much, sometimes they respect Caitlyn Jenner.
I agree with you, but I also think that no one is above satire. And I
That's
think
true.
that's what was happening
my
here,
God.
especially if you're going to enter the
Yes.
political arena, you are going to be satired. That's just part of the game.
Skewered in general, that's part of it. That's what you do when you expose yourself to that extreme.
Well, I got to share this. I went to a comedy club. Dear Lord, why did I go to a comedy club? Why did I sit in the front row? The comedian, I mean, he must have made 4 different jokes about me. Of course, it was a little uncomfortable, but they were funny. And at the end of the show, do you know he came over to me and he said, "You know what? Thanks for being a good sport." So
We have to laugh at
Yeah.
ourselves. We really do. And
We do.
trans entertainers that do drag, there are things I say on the microphone as a drag queen that I would never say on stage as a trans woman. But as entertainers, we can laugh.
Well, maybe this is an opportunity to invite Caitlyn to our show and see what she has to say. Sit at the table with us and let's have a discussion.
And bring the money to Florida because she give the
Exactly.
money only to California. So Caitlyn Jenner, we love you here. Bring the money here.
If we are going to truly explore the trans community, we must also focus on the news. We will bring you the most important news of the week in our segment called Trans is the News. Trans is the News. Thousands turned out for London Trans Pride 2021. Thousands of trans people and their allies gathered in the British capital of London this week for one of the world's largest trans pride events. London Trans Pride 2021 had marchers who had held up placards saying, quotes, "Black trans lives matter," "F the system," "Legalized my identity," "Trans rights now," and "Out of the closet and into the streets." As they made the mile-long march from Wellington Arch to Soho Square, protesters turned out to demand equal rights for the trans community, better access to health care, and legal recognition for non-binary people. Model and activist Monroe Bergdorf delivered a stirring speech during the rally at Soho Square. She told the crowd, quote, "Take a second to understand how important this is, how necessary this is, how beautiful this is. We have spaces like this. It's a reminder to see God in each other, whatever God is, a higher power, to treat each other how we want to be treated. This is not a moment. We are not a moment. This is our legacy. As different as we are as individuals, we are reflections of each other, inextricably linked and spiritually bonded by community. This is evidence of community."
Can I get
End
an
quote.
amen? Amen. I got an amen, Misty.
Love
You
it.
should be a preacher. We should talk
In
to
a
the
former
folks here at
life.
Sunshine Cathedral.
In a former life, I was a preacher.
No, but I love this. This is why I love the British, because they don't do the respectability politics like we do. They don't care. They're willing to go out in the streets and pump their fists and say, "Yeah, let trans rights now. Let's fight for this." So I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And where else is this happening, right? It's not happening here that we know of anywhere else in the United States. It's certainly not happening in Florida. So how amazing that this is happening and there's a model to follow.
Right. I mean, I have a friend over in London. Shout out to London boy. But every time
No
I'm
name.
complaining, every time I'm complaining about something, that we're dealing with here as trans people, he's like, "Oh, that doesn't happen here in our country. Trans people have rights."
He wants you to move.
But it's good to know that he's telling the truth. It sounds like they have a lot of support over there.
One thing that really shocks me and strikes me and kind of slaps me across the face is 2 things. First, 52 years ago, Stonewall riots happened. We are still protesting. And the other thing that slaps me across the face is the Stonewall riots happened because of trans people fighting for gay rights. What about our rights?
Hello. So trans is in the news against the current against the current. That's the title of the documentary I'm talking about strength of trans women. Okay, well, actually, trans people. So just over a dozen people have ever traveled around Iceland via kayak, meaning fewer people have done so than have climbed the infamous K2 peak. In the film Against the Current, trans women Viega, Greta's daughter, travels 13,000 miles around Iceland while paddling against the current and becoming a national hero. Viega was the first person ever to travel the whole way around Iceland against the current. Now, first, I want to apologize for the choppiness. I think this story is amazing, so I don't want to take anything away from me screwing up. It's an amazing story, and she should be so proud. She's to travel all the way around
Against the
Iceland.
current?
Yeah,
That's like a motto
exactly.
for our life.
Yes.
Everything we do is against the current.
Yes.
Go
Beautiful
diva.
metaphor.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And representation matters, as we always talk about.
Absolutely.
So
Exactly.
documentaries about trans people doing amazing things, we need more of
This
those.
is amazing, and we should scream it from the mountaintop. Anytime we make an achievement or do something great in the world, we should scream it because people are constantly down talking us. But there's phenomenal people in our community,
And we can do anything we put our
phenomenal.
mind
And
to.
trans
Yeah.
people are strong. We're always portrayed to be weak and helpless and
How,
whatnot.
how can we be weak? We're always fighting against the current.
Mm-hmm. Well, trans is the news. Over 476,000 trans adults don't have an ID that matches their gender. Watch this.
Transgender people are more likely to face violence and discrimination than the average U.S. resident. One of the reasons they're often at risk is their IDs, a simple document that many might take for granted. When the gender marker on state-issued ID doesn't match the outward appearance of a transgender person, it opens up a world of harassment and sometimes violence.
When it comes to getting a job, this could be the best job ever. And then now all of a sudden they see my gender marker and now they're treating me different.
They can be afraid to show their IDs while driving, at a bar, or to vote for fear of someone finding out that they're transgender.
The scary part is for me, being stopped by the police. You just never know who's stopping you. You don't know if these people are homophobic. You just don't know.
A new report reveals that a staggering number of transgender people in the United States lack any form of ID that displays their correct gender marker. A new study conducted by the UCLA's Williams Institute suggests that as many as 476,000 transgender adults do not have a driver's license or state ID that matches their sense of self. If the pro-LGBTQ+ think tank's estimate of the overall population of trans Americans is correct, that amounts to around 34% of transgender people in the U.S. Analyzing data from the 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey, or the USTS, researchers found that states with the most barriers to updating documents also had the lowest numbers of transgender people with correct identification. In Michigan, a nation-leading 77.7% of trans adults lacked any form of ID that corresponds with their lived identity. Next on the list of states with these few corrected IDs were Alabama at 75.5%, South Carolina at 73.8%, Tennessee at 73.2%, and Iowa at 70.1%. Several of these states require that trans people obtain a court order or present proof of having received some form of gender confirmation surgery before they can legally change their documents. According to the Movement Advancement Project, 8 states are in this most restrictive tier: Texas, Oklahoma, Iowa, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and South Carolina. Tennessee, meanwhile, remains the only state in the country that bars transgender people from correcting their birth certificates at all. That policy is being challenged in court by advocacy groups like Lambda Legal.
In the state of Florida, there are still 60% of trans people that don't have IDs that match. Fortunately, Florida has made it much easier. You do not need a gender confirmation surgery to change your birth certificate anymore in Florida. And one of my clients recently went to a very high-end department store in the Galleria Mall. I won't say the name, but she showed up. They hired her. She worked one day, helped everyone with the Jimmy Choo shoes and Louis Vuitton purses and whatever. And they said, come tomorrow with 2 forms of ID. When she showed up the next day with an ID that did not match her presentation, they told her job has been filled. It is real and it is happening, and it happens every single day.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to add was that this is so clearly just out of discrimination, because if you get married, you can change your name for free.
Yeah.
You just fill out a form and send it to the Social Security office, and that's it. And also, I'm one of those people that doesn't have their correct gender on their ID because there is no option for my gender at all. There's no process for me even to change it to something that matches me. It doesn't exist in the state of Florida.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I think for a lot of trans people, let's say you get your gender changed. People may still know you're trans. I mean, not all of us are quote unquote passable, but I think having the ability to do it is so very important. And I think that trans people, because we can do it, I feel that you should get it done, because at least when you're traveling or you have to show your ID, you don't give them an excuse to be discriminatory. The gender marker is matching. And Lord knows I had my hell, and I went through hell and high water at one of the places that I work down here. And I sat at a desk for pretty much most of the day with no bathroom to use, because they didn't want me to, well, of course, use I didn't want to use the men's room, and they didn't want me to because of for my safety. But then they felt like if I used the ladies' room, I would be offensive to the women at the job. And I tell you, I was determined to prove myself, so I endured that for a number of years. And there were times that I had to leave and actually go pee in my car, and it's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing, but I did what I had to do.
To survive.
I did, and it's just the reality for a lot of trans people. And I just hope that, I was there almost 7 years, and I hope that I helped to bring some walls down. And I left a legacy, because I went there and I showed up every day.
I'm sure
Every
you did.
day, giving my 100%, giving it my all.
Absolutely.
So-
Talk about that strength that we were
Yeah.
talking about in the
Against
story
the current.
before.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's interesting at Ariana Center, and I know at SunServe do the same kind of work. This is some of the top work that we do, is help people change their gender markers. It's not only like the initiation into the services that we all provide, it's such a necessary step in uplifting those lives. And it's something that people take for granted all the time.
And people don't realize how important it is when you change and when your ID matches when your personality and how you present with the society. It's a new life. And when people, they recognize and they realize the importance of the gender identity and gender and the name and the name what is matches when your ID, maybe going to change some minds or some people.
Absolutely.
But it's so important.
Absolutely. At Translation, we examine what the trans community as people experience in our world. This next segment is called First Impressions of Trans People, What We Face. This week, scientists argued that right-wing propaganda was used to attack transgender people. Watch this.
But sexual differentiation in the brain actually happens much later than gonadal differentiation. And yes, although controversial, male and female brains have structural and functional differences between each other. Studies have found that males generally have a larger cerebrum, cerebellum, and hippocampus, while females have higher density left frontal lobes and larger volumes in the right frontal lobes. So what exactly do we see when we look at the brain of a transgender person? Several studies have shown that that transgender brains are both structurally and functionally more similar to their experienced gender identity than their biological sex.
One study found that trans women who, despite being assigned male at birth, had a smaller female-sized structure in the hypothalamus. MRI scans also show the brain structures of trans people to be more similar in thickness to their experienced gender and not their sex. Finally, the pheromone androstenedione causes different hypothalamic responses in male and female brains. And when individuals with gender dysphoria were exposed to it, the hypothalamic response matched their perceived gender rather than their sex. These studies help to highlight how masculinization or feminization of the gonads is not always the same as the brain, and that there's a difference between your sex or your anatomy and your gender or how we perceive our own bodies.
Scientists argue propaganda used against transgender people is an attack on science. What did you face on the facts of your decisions? Misty, tell us about what we face.
So let me just paraphrase that video real quick in layman's terms. In layman's terms, when a person is pregnant, in the first trimester, all babies are XX. In the second trimester, the tubular turns to a penis or a clitoris. In the third trimester, the gender of the brain is developed. And as trans people, we face a society and family and religion and people that tell us we are not different. We have a hidden differential thing that affects our body. I'm not going to say it's a disability, but if somebody is to be born without an arm, that's an obvious difference. Oh, but we like them, we accept them, they're different, that's okay. We're going to give them, extra scissors or a special desk. But what about us?
What do you say you don't want to say for disability?
I don't think it's a disability. I think it's a blessing. I think it's a gift. I think that we are special, and that's amazing.
But if many people there or many transgender, they can have that disability, they can have a check. What is the most important for transgender who they are 4 or 5 times more poverty of the other groups?
I do think it's a disability, but I also think it's a gift.
Okay.
And I don't want to say it's disability. I want to say you're disabled, I'm disabled. I don't.
Right, being trans doesn't mean that you're disabled.
Correct.
Right. Thank you for that, Misty. Gordon, tell us about what we face.
So for me, it's been a much different experience. I think a lot of what the issue I have experienced is that we're just simply erased. Non-binary, genderqueer people, we're told that we don't exist. And when you have non-binary people like me, if I'm dressed like this, oh, well, you're not non-binary, you're just a man. And I always have to remind people, I don't owe you androgyny. I don't have to look a certain way to be non-binary. I am, no matter how I'm dressed. I don't always dress like this, but that doesn't mean that I'm any different. But most of my struggles have been in barriers to getting healthcare that is adequate. I can't even fill out a form at the doctor that has my correct gender on it most of the time. Certainly can't fill out a census or anything legal. As I mentioned earlier, there is no correct gender for my ID. Dating is hard. People would assume things about me. People often look at me and assume certain things. And there's also is no bathroom for my gender in most places.
Disney has one.
Disney has one.
Great.
How they go to the bathroom gender
The
not
family
conforming?
bathroom.
We have to usually pretend to be one or the other and then go to the bathroom.
Your perspective is so important on the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for that. Ariana, tell us about what we face.
Why?
She's still on Disney.
Yeah, because I still thinking
There's a
about
private
that.
bathroom at Disney. All the bathrooms, male, female, and private.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to use that one all the time.
Oh, a long time I don't go to Disney, but I have to go now when after vaccination. But I think I don't know. All the time I face internally I am different. I'm different to other people, and that is what is most important for me. I feel indifferent, and I know my different don't make any trouble or problem to working and everything, and that's what I try to develop every day in my life. But I don't know. I don't know if that is disability or not disability. The only I know I am a transgender, and and that is my life, and I have to live the 100% the best I can.
Authentically and being
Yeah.
yourself. Thank you for that. Rajee, tell us about what we face.
Well, it's interesting how society can be so selective. Okay, here you have scientists and doctors saying that this transgender thing is real. It's real. All right. But then you have society saying or looking at us like, oh, please. Like, you all are crazy. And let me tell you, for me, I've been many places and I can see the looks and the smirks and the judgment like, oh, look at this lunatic. Okay. But then no compassion. Because Missy, you brought up the fact of like, okay, if we're disabled, then aren't we supposed to get the compassion of a disabled person? No, no, no. We get the judgment of a disabled person, but not the compassion.
Correct.
And if people took time, and there's no excuse in today's world to be ignorant about something. We have Google. You can Google anything. Take a little time to understand. The doctors and the scientists are saying that in the development of the fetus, at some point, the brain develops as one way and the body develops as the other. What is so difficult about that? Like to understand that. And so that's what I've dealt with majority of my trans life after transitioning, going places and just being taken as a joke. Not like, like almost like a sideshow circus freak. So
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you all for sharing about yourselves, about your authentic selves. We're all learning a lot here. Up next, this is our trans issue of the week. Each week, we will focus on what we think the entire trans community is talking about. The Supreme Court can be a friend to the trans community and an enemy. So this week, the infamous Gavin Grimm bathroom access court case came to a conclusion of sorts. So our translation issue of the week is, Supreme Court ends Gavin Grimm's legal fight over transgender bathroom access.
So I do actually have a question about this story. I'm not sure whether this applies to people who are legally recognized as their correct gender by the state, or if this applies to anybody who just simply identifies as transgender and says they're transgender.
So I think that's the argument that the right-wing conservatives are saying, that anybody can put on a dress and go into the public bathroom and rape their 10-year-old daughter or whatever. So the laws, I don't know about the Supreme Court laws, but I do know that in the state of Florida specifically, the law is written, if you manifest and present on a daily basis male, you use the men's bathroom, period, end of story. If you present daily as a female, you use a female's bathroom. It has nothing to do with what gender markers on your ID. It has nothing to do with what surgeries you've had. It's how you identify and how you present to the world. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
And how people know you are daily dressing as a woman and daily.
Well, they would have to follow you around it if they wanted to press charges, whatever. But I
for
will
go
say,
one time to the bathroom, they
That-
follow me all,
Well-
all day. All
No,
day.
well, that's because you were
Well,
tapping your foot.
I
under
mean,
the
if
stall.
it made it to court, there's a pre-trial piece that's called Finding of Facts. So they would find that out before the trial began.
Oh my
Oh.
God. Well, you know what? Come on. And this argument about, our children. Like statistically, who are the pedophiles?
Literally.
Let's really break this down now. Statistically, who are the pedophiles?
And that is
All
what
right.
happened where you tell about the compassion and the people they don't understand, because people they don't understand transgender have to go to the bathroom. And it's only 1 or 2 minutes you have to go to the bathroom. And people they don't understand, as a trans woman, I don't want to go to the woman's bathroom where it's dirty all the time. Girls, they are, they are not flushing the bathrooms. You know how
Women's bathrooms are
traumatic
way
it's got.
filthier.
But it's more safety to be in the other bathroom where it's not accomplished to me. So I don't know why people have so dirty mind, or I don't know what.
Well, they're
happens.
trying to make it dirty. They're using the
Yeah.
argument like, oh my goodness, if a trans woman goes into the bathroom, my little girl's at jeopardy.
Right.
Come on.
And you know that
Friday?
that's all developed in
Honey-
a room, a bunch of conservatives creating problems that we don't have.
Listen, you want me to go in the men's room with your husband?
And that is
Do
the
you
problem.
really want me to go in the men's room with your
That
husband?
is a very, very, very a problematic history if you go to a trans woman, go to a men's bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Because the men's bathroom, if that is public bathroom, and trans woman is there, it's a lot of men, they going to addressing, harassing a
Yeah.
transgender woman. And if the police coming, they don't take the men in the bathroom. They take the transgender.
They take
So
the
that
transgender
is
person.
that is the problematic history about the bathrooms. I don't understand.
So maybe if Republican elected officials would stop secretly having sex in the public bathroom.
Oh,
that's
a good point. You know, I was in one TV show and I say, you know, we're working with transgender who they are working in sex work. And they told me they want to have they make a lot of money and the Republicans,
Congressman.
Republican, what is it? The Republican
Representatives.
convention.
Oh.
If you go to all my clients, they
Mhm.
say they make a lot of money when they go to a Republican
The
convention and they put
hypocrisy.
They're
and that is the
acting-
Mhm.
The
hypocrisy.
So I want to go back to the story at hand. So do we think that this is any
So this is
should we
actually-
be celebrating what
This
happened
is actually
to
good
Kevin
news. I think
Yeah,
that's what you're
it
saying.
is.
This is actually
It
good
is.
news.
Yes.
Because what the Supreme Court is saying, we already spoke last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we said is done. We don't need to talk about it again. We
Yeah.
don't need to hit it over the head again. We said it, it's done. And this is actually a win for us.
It is.
Yeah.
And
It
it's
is.
a win for the kids because this is right now we're seeing even here in Florida, a law banning trans kids from being able to play sports. And here this is someone that's just trying to
Yeah.
pee.
And the
Yeah.
Supreme Court is doing amazing work right now in legalize and and give good laws for transgender individuals or LGBT.
Absolutely. They've
Yeah.
definitely been on our side for the last several years. With that, next up, we are going to play a game. It gets fun now.
Oh,
And learn a bit more about our hosts.
Oh, Jesus.
We call this Translation Game of the Week. Tonight's game is called Truth or No Dare. Before the show, each host wrote down something that is true about them and something that is not true about them. I'm getting ready to read a card as our other hosts guess what was the truth. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Let's play Truth or No Dare. Okay, so the craziest thing I have ever done was meet a guy on Grindr, then left the country to meet him, had a drink with Amanda Lepore. Did all of that happen in one night?
So they definitely left the country. They did not have a drink with Amanda Lepore.
Wait, the most famous person I have ever met, Seth Green and Al Ferguson. Who's Al Ferguson?
Oh.
Nobody knows.
All right, so that's one. That's one.
We
Let's go to
know
the next
who
one.
that is.
The craziest thing I have ever done.
Yeah.
Is have sex in an airplane. The most famous person I have ever met, meet Eddie Murphy. Who do we think this is?
Are we guessing who they are now?
Let's guess. Let's have a little bit of a conversation.
So Eddie Murphy. Well,
Who would
Who
have
had
met Eddie
sex
Murphy?
in an airplane?
Misty.
Yeah.
Misty.
I thought you
Who's
would
part
have
of the
met
Mile High
Eddie
Club?
Murphy. Is Eddie Murphy your guy? You know all the celebrities, Rajee.
we should have a celebrity battle. I've got pictures for a lot of them.
Inquiry minds want to know.
All right, we'll move on to the next person. The craziest thing I have ever done. I had sex on the side of I-95 outside of my car. Wow.
Outside of my car.
Outside of my car. The
Wow.
most famous person I have ever met, David Bowie, and he was flirting with me. Who's
Who is-
this?
Oh, you
Who is
know
David
what?
Bowie?
That's probably
It-
Misty.
It's not you. Too young. Too young to have been with David
You think
Bowie.
I don't know who David Bowie
No, you know who David Bowie is, but would you
No,
have
but
hung
it
out
would
with
have to be-
geriatric
He only
David Bowie?
just died. He only just died.
I don't know.
I think the person,
can,
if they lied about one of those, they didn't meet David Bowie.
So that one is
I
you.
think they definitely had
That
sex
one
outside
is
of their
you.
car.
In the 95 outside of the car. At
Why
one time. Yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning in the day.
What crazy. Oh my God.
Coming home from the bottom line.
What
I don't-
crazy.
Well, that's
The bottom line.
That's
Oh
funny.
my God.
That's
That's somewhere else. That's somewhere else. All
Thinking
right.
75.
This next person, the craziest thing I have ever done. I've had sex in a church. Wow. I've had an orgy with George Michael.
That's Misty.
And the most famous person I have ever met, Madonna and Whitney Houston. Who's this?
She was Misty because she doing a show in the church. Remember? Yeah.
What show and what church?
Why am I all
more.
of them?
You're all of them.
All of them.
Apparently, you're all of them.
It sounds like
I've-
my kind of church.
I'm having sex on 95 in a church with George Michael.
Oh my God.
Oh, in the church.
Oh, we
Oh, at least I wasn't by the side of the highway.
I don't know.
All right, so let's start to try to.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to read these
Okay.
again, and I
Yeah.
want
Let's
you to
get
serious.
Okay, some of them
Serious.
have
mean,
2 things on them, and some of them have 1 thing on
some of them have 3 things on
I
them,
know.
actually.
Okay.
So one's a
So-
lie.
One's
Right.
a lie, one's a truth.
Okay.
Right.
Yes?
So,
Let's do that.
One's a
I can
baby.
pick out the lies. I think.
well, so I'll read the card and you come clean and then you tell us what the truth is and what the falsity was, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we're not guessing anymore.
Yes.
Okay.
The craziest thing I have ever done, met a guy on Grindr, then left the country to meet him, and then had a drink with Amanda Lepore.
No.
The most famous person I have ever met, Seth Green and Al Ferguson. Who is this Al
I
Ferguson?
don't know who is Al Ferguson.
Me either.
I'm American, so
yeah.
it's not my
So who's
friend.
this? So who's this?
They say famous.
So who's this? Come clean. Who's this?
It's me.
Oh my
So-
God. Okay.
You're not even an Al Ferguson fan.
So
So that is a lie. That is
No,
a
no,
So
lie.
you've
So-
never met a celebrity?
No, so the trick question is Al Ferguson's not actually famous. I've met Seth Green.
Oh, okay.
Got it. So what's true? So you meet a
So I haven't met Amanda Lepore, though I would love to, but I used to live in San Diego, and I lived in San Isidro for a while, which is the southernmost borough, right? And I met a guy on Grindr, really cute.
Sweating over in
couldn't-
Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Mexico.
I had a passport. He couldn't get into the U.S., but I could go to Tijuana.
Oh.
So I went to Tijuana and had great sex with him. It was
Going to another country in Florida is much more difficult than in California.
But I'd like to object.
Yeah, you
I
have to
think-
go to Cuba, no?
I'd like to object. I think Al
I'm not swimming that far for the day.
famous.
You swim.
You don't have to say that. 'cause
In
he's
his
sitting
mind.
In some arenas, he's very famous. Thank you very much.
Are in some arenas. I wonder what that actually means. So we'll move on. Thank
Or
you,
you think
Gordon.
not the
Thank
same.
you.
Oh, and I met
Okay.
Seth Green when I was in elementary school because he used to tour with Radio Disney, and he showed up at my school.
Oh.
In
Yeah.
Grindr?
No, girl, no, Seth Green.
Oh, who is Seth Green?
He played the son of
Dr.
Dr.
Evil.
Evil in
Right.
Shall I Shag Now? Or
I
Shag
watching
Later.
in your
He was
TV
famous.
show.
Robot
That's what you're
Chicken.
saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next one. The craziest thing I have ever done, have sex in an airplane, and the most famous person I have ever met, I met Eddie Murphy. Who's this?
That's me.
Oh, you did meet Eddie Murphy?
Oh my
Well,
God! And
you
you
don't
had
know what
sex
is-
in the air?
I want to know what's true and what's false.
No, one is true and one is false.
Which one is the truth?
The truth is I met Eddie Murphy.
Oh,
He was-
where?
Did he hire
Oh.
you? Because I've heard that he hires the client.
I am the only escort in this table. It used to be a
Current escort.
How do I
my
not know this?
God.
because you.
Oh well, listen,
I've never asked.
Everyone knows that Eddie Murphy has
never-
a thing.
That's
I
what
never,
I'm
I never
saying.
was. I was new in United States, and I was in the bar in New York where we are.
Ooh.
And my friends telling me, and I meet one nice guy, nice, and he told me he was a lawyer and everything from New Jersey or whatever. And we go there, and when we come back, all the girls they coming to me and say, "Oh, you don't know who you dating?" I said, "What?" I said, "Oh, you go with Eddie Murphy." I said, "Oh, really? I don't know." That's why people they talking with him because I don't know nothing. But that was the
What
truth.
was the dick like?
Oh,
Oh my
This is a
Bleep that out.
G-rated.
yes. Thank you, Gordon.
Show us with your.
We're bringing your Gen Zer
and
everything to the table.
And the false is I'm never have a sex in the
Oh, I was gonna ask you if that was
no,
true.
I travel a lot, but I don't know how
Yeah.
because
difficult.
I try
Flight
to.
attendants.
Yes, and the bathroom is so small, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
I was, when I by
uncomfortable.
So you get a
myself over
blanket.
there,
You get
I
the
try to
blanket.
see how I can
Yeah.
do it, you know.
So you
But-
tried at the very least, just for
Yes, but
spatial
my-
reasons.
I've tried.
Oh, really?
I've traveled with my husband, but I mean under a
What
blanket.
is a family
how you get a
bathroom in
federal
the-
offense.
Under a
in the-
blanket.
All right,
Okay.
let's move on. The craziest thing I have ever done, I had sex, I want to know who this is. I had the sex on the side of I-95 outside my car. The most famous person I have ever met, David Bowie, and he was flirting with me.
Okay, it's me.
And the truth is you have a sex at 95.
Okay, well the thing is, there was this guy I was seeing, and he was an exhibitionist,
Oh.
and he kept bugging me
Ooh.
to have sex out in public. And one night we were out, and he is on I-95, and he pulls over, and he's like, "Let's do it here." And I looked at him like, "Are you freaking out of your mind?" So that's false. I didn't do it. He wanted me to. No. I wasn't going to jail for anybody. I'm sorry, because the police would have arrested me.
Of course.
You know, please. Come on. So no, but the truth is I did meet David Bowie. It was in the late 80s. I was over in England visiting my half sister, Jennifer. She's passed away now, God bless her soul. But we were there, and on the way back, David Bowie was on the plane. He was in first class. I was in, But at the baggage claim, my sister nudged me and she says, David Bowie keeps staring at you. And I said, really? And then I looked over and he kind of like looked at me and gave me a smile and like winked his eye. And so that was the meeting. That was it. But if I was bold, because I was shy then, I was young. I would have gone over to him
So
now.
you saw him, you didn't meet
Well, we
him.
kind of met. We didn't have conversation.
Well, they had a moment.
Yeah, we had a
They were looking
moment.
at
Made
each
eye
other.
contact.
We made eye contact. And,
Yeah, that's
and
exciting.
It was obvious that he was flirting with me. And then when I thought about it afterwards, I was like, oh, yeah, David Bowie is attracted to like exotic, swirly, because, look at his partners. Before Iman, he was married to Iman.
Right.
And, so anyway, it was interesting.
You had a moment.
I had a
Let's go
moment.
with
Now,
that.
let me tell you, if I was like I am now, I would have walked over to him. I would have been like, hi, my name's Rajee. Here's my number.
Right, here's my number. And Misty, so you had sex in a church and had an orgy with George Michael?
I should have known that.
The false is
The sex
orgy
in the
when
church
the
is
orgy when Michael, but the true is the sex in the church.
Church.
You're right. So I did a
Yes.
true and a false for both questions. I misunderstood.
Holy communion.
Oh.
So
Yes.
I did have sex in a church,
You see,
and I have
Wow.
not had sex with George Michael, but I was in love with him.
Ooh.
Were we all?
Gosh, in 8th grade, I took
Oh
a
my
picture of him to the beach.
with your
with him.
Marco.
I can't believe anybody
George
ever
Michael.
thought
Oh,
he
Wham.
was straight.
Oh my God. Remember when he was
Oh.
in Wham?
Yes.
Careless
So hot.
Whispers.
Careless Whispers.
Oh.
And Wake Me Up Before You
Oh,
Go.
I was gonna say, wake me up before you go. And
I
those
was
tight
in love
shorts.
with him.
In
He
those
was
tight
my
shorts.
He was
man.
gorgeous.
earrings.
Giving away my age, but I don't care. I just George Michael young.
Yeah.
And then the most famous person I ever met, I lied about Madonna, but I have met Whitney Houston. I've actually met a lot of celebrities. And I'm talking about like international celebrities, not just RuPaul queens. But Whitney Houston came into the New York Grilled Cheese. I'm sorry, Cheesecake Factory. I used to be a trainer there for 5 years. And she came in there and she sat herself in my section. I did not recognize her. She was totally cracked out, bone skinny,
Ooh.
had a terrible dollar store
Oh,
wig
that's
on.
Oh, dear.
And I'm like,
Lord.
excuse me, ma'am, you cannot sit here. You have to go to the hostess stand. And she's like, I eat here every day. And I'm like, well, then you would know we have a wait and you have to go to the hostess stand. Well, soon Bobby Brown walked up right behind her. And I was like, oh no. And he went to their hostess stand and said, can I please have a table right away? They put her right back at my table. They shared a bang bang chicken and shrimp and didn't eat half of it. And they both had tropical smoothie.
And you upset her. But I want to go back to this
upset her.
church bit, because you sort of glided over that quite famously. Like, what happened in that church, Misty? Where was
What?
the church? What happened in
So,
the church? Give us details.
For those of you that know, I'm a good Christian woman.
I don't think
and
so because
clearly.
when the
I
show,
am
when
Lamba.
this girl,
You don't even know me, ma'am. Please. I grew up in the church.
Well, you know what?
What does that even mean? What does that mean?
Honey, I had to go to church every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday
Something
night.
was
and
bound to happen.
Sunday
Wait.
night.
Is
Honey,
this a
I-
Catholic church?
No, this is a charismatic evangelical Pentecostal.
Oh, worse.
church.
Wow.
Oh my
But
God.
I've been stuck in
Oh,
since I was 9 years old.
Lord.
Okay, full disclosure, and this is not to be. I was molested, so I knew what that was, and that it got hard when you played with it at a very young age. So from 3 to 13, I was molested.
Oh my God.
But at 9 years old, I wanted to play with my friends,
Mhm.
and so in church, while my dad was preaching, I would
Oh, your dad was
Ooh.
go and play with my friends.
Oh my
This
God.
got dark real fast.
Well, Misty, you and
Yeah.
I have a couple things in common. Bobby Brown, because I met him in the late 80s. That's all I'm going to say. And the church thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
thank
mean,
you
who
for-
has had sex in a church? I mean, yeah.
I haven't had sex in a church ever.
Oh, I
Anyone
have.
else have sex in a church? What is
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Well, I was forced, kind of. you
All
know,
right.
so-
On that note,
No, I did
Gordon,
it willingly.
You have our
Up next, we're going to do a lightning round of some of the trans topics in the news. We call this segment Trans Poppin' Fresh. So we're going to tell you a headline in the news this week and discuss it. But there's a twist. We only get to discuss it for 1 minute. Everyone understand?
1 minute for real. 1 minute.
Un momento.
Okay.
For a trans person, the sound of your voice can be an issue.
Yes.
Let's learn more. Watch this.
Hi, I've had lots of questions about my voice and whether I would change it or whether I have ever thought about doing that. The answer is yes, I have. When I was a lot younger, when I went through a lot of bullying and torment and like torture and stuff, I definitely had moments where I was like, I want to change my voice. I want it gone. Like, I don't want to sound like this anymore. I want to be normal because I was never normal in other people's eyes. So I did have moments, but now I feel like I have this voice for a reason. And I think that reason is to spread a positive message to all of you guys that being different, being unique is not a bad thing. It is actually a really, really good thing and it's really powerful. So I think you'll be seeing this for a long, long time to come. So maybe get used to it. Hi, I do.
I just don't use it very often because I can't use it full time. Because obviously my voice isn't meant to be this way. So I'm not, do you know what I mean? But occasionally I will use it. And I did used to use it when I was in high school to like do prank calls and stuff, which was pretty cool. But overall, I don't really use it. It's just kind of when I want to, and I guess it's just another asset of mine and something I can do and something different. So, but not very often, just in certain situations where I feel like I need to do it.
So trans pop and fresh headline, Australian woman bullied for sounding like a man, finds peace after being compared to Cher. What do we think about this?
My voice is the thing I'm most dysphoric about. And honestly, I have looked into going to Seoul, Korea for that $11,000 surgery. Once you go through male puberty and those vocal cords deepen, it's permanent. And yes, you can train yourself and you can take training classes, but it is not easy and you can damage your voice doing that. I, like her, have given up and said, I'm a woman and this is a woman's voice, get over it. But I get misgendered constantly in drive-thrus and constantly on the telephone. I hate it.
Yeah. See, I feel like it's a tell for me too because when I answer the phone, half the time they say, "Oh, thank you, ma'am," even after I say my name. I can't really hide it. And on top of that, it's just like I look like this, so once they hear me over the phone and then see me in person, usually they're like, "Who am I here to see? I don't know."
Yeah. And I think, it's not only pitch, it's like tone. Because you can talk high. Hi, how are you? But it doesn't come off natural. Before I transitioned, my voice was similar, but I think I have like a softer voice in my, you know what someone told me once that I sound like a New York broad. Like, how like the older broads that smoke and they have a little raspiness. Yeah. But, if you really want to know, I'm laying here in my bed with my bra and panties on. What's your name? Oh, John, stop it. Oh
Lord.
God.
It's not only your voice that changes, it's your face too.
Yeah.
Ham it up.
There was a time I had to do this for a living. And
On that note, Rajee, thank you for that.
Honey, thank you.
I almost want to record that. Thank you.
It is recorded on translation.
This week, the trans community marked the Stonewall riots, led by a trans woman of color, Marsha P. Johnson. This week, the White House and President Biden honored this moment with a historic special introduction. Watch this.
Please welcome Ashton Moda.
Thank you so much, Secretary Buttigieg, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashton Moda. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm honored to be here with you all today. I'm a 16-year-old Black, Afro-Latino high school student from Lowell, Massachusetts. I also happen to be transgender. I want to thank President Biden for the protections his administration has put in place for LGBTQ+ people nationwide. While we know there's work to be done, these efforts are deeply meaningful to so many young people like me. President Biden has always stood up for his family, and I know he'll always stand up for my family too. Mr. President, thank you for having our back. it is my great honor to introduce to you the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
What a beautiful moment. So trans pop and fresh headline. Trans teen introduces Biden to mark return of Pride events at White House. What do we think about this?
I'm not crying.
You're
crying.
Oh
I
my
think this
God.
is so beautiful. And after the nightmare of the last 4 years that we've had, it's a total dream. It's a fantasy. It's almost an illusion. Like, I can't believe this is actually happening in our lifetime.
What a difference a year makes. I mean, really. You know, what a difference from 45 to 46, honey. And, you know, you can see that this presidency is truly LGBTQ friendly, compassionate, sensitive, all of it. So I think it's wonderful.
It's nice to see that he campaigned about it and put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah, and you know, I'm as this person who's like way far on the left, I've always kind of been not super comfortable with people who are more in the center, like Joe Biden. But there is a clear difference. There's a clear change in tone and how they're treating us, and I love this because this is exactly where trans people belong, in the White House.
Absolutely. And a new era for these White House receptions, as our headline said. I went to 2 of the Pride receptions at the White House, and while Obama was president, and they were beautiful in nature, but I'll tell you that at one of them, a trans woman of color was basically dragged out because she spoke out in the middle of the president's speech.
Yanice Gutierrez.
Yanice Gutierrez. Yanice, if you're watching, un abrazo. And the white gay men in the audience were bashing her, like screaming her, telling her to shut up, to get out of the way. So this is not only historic, it is monumental. It is a beautiful, beautiful moment. So after years of planning and pandemic delay, the Tokyo Olympics are set to begin. And this year, history is made. So trans pop and fresh headline, New Zealand weightlifter Laurel Hubbard to become first openly transgender athlete to compete at Olympics. What do you think about this?
Do you know this is actually major because of athletes like Caster Semenya, who is intersex and a female born with male testicles. When she first won the 2008 German World Championships, they tried to dethrone her and take her gold medal away because she is intersex and the testosterone and estrogen. But when a person transitions and they take testosterone blockers and they lower their testosterone level, they become super weak. Before transition, I could move my couch by myself and sweep underneath it. And after transitioning in testosterone blockers, I could not move my couch at all. So what's major for her is that she had to force her testosterone levels so low so she could qualify, and yet she's still able to be a power lifter. That is major.
That's the strength we've been talking about.
Yeah,
Swimming up current against the stream and then putting a blocker and still doing it.
Incredible.
But the unfortunate part of this is that in order for her to qualify and to compete at all, she had to reveal her health information. She had to reveal that she was trans. And she should not have had to do that to compete. She should have just been allowed to compete.
I think the LGBTQ community have to make something and invite the Governor DeSantis to Tokyo and see how this trans woman is playing and understand and educate that terrible mind he has, because that is the truth. You know, the Olympic people, they can go and make a sport as a trans woman. And it's impossible that you in Florida, the governor don't believe that kind of things.
Listen, I haven't been on hormones for years, and I'll tell you, I went and had some blood recently, and my doctor said, wow, your testosterone level is really, really low. Like, and she says, I thought you were giving your body a break. I said, I am. So I wouldn't even qualify. Well, a lot of things would prevent me from playing the sports, but I wouldn't qualify because you had to be a certain level, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Rajee.
yeah.
Next up, the mission of translation is to give our beautiful trans community the voice they deserve. So this is our segment called What's on Your Mind? I'm going to ask each of the unique and diverse hosts to tell us what we should be thinking about this week. Here we go. Misty, what's on your mind?
You know, what's on my mind is what we talked about this entire episode. Swimming upstream, swimming against the battle, forcing a way where there is no way. And that's what's on my mind right now, is that no matter who you are, you can do it. No, don't let other people put obstacles in your way. As trans people, there are tons of barriers and obstacles. I remember I saw once a cartoon where there was a cis white male Christian guy running down the track, and then a marginalized community member running down the track, and there was like spikes and balls and all kinds of things in his way or their way. And they're like, yeah, it's the same race, it's the same distance. Why can't you make it? And no matter what, we can do it. Our visibility gives us power. Our unity gives us strength. We can do it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Misty. Ariana, what's on your mind?
Well, in my mind is today is Thursday, and the President Biden visited the Surfside people.
Surfside, yeah.
Surfside. So I'm here because it's a week and was a terrible moment for everybody.
Yeah.
And I watching in the TV, and my all prize and my all good energies is when those people. That is in my mind for now.
Thank you, Ariana. Gordon, what's on your mind?
So mine's two very quick things. One, I'm really happy to be here. So
We're
thank
happy
you
to
for
have you.
allowing me to be on the show. And I hope that if there are people that are younger than myself that are watching, they'll know that there's other people out there that are like you. We exist. And the other thing is, this past Saturday was National HIV Awareness Day. And I think it's really exciting because now, for the first time in our lifetimes, we may actually see the end of the HIV pandemic or epidemic. So wherever you are, whoever you are, know your status, get tested, get on PrEP, and use condoms.
Thanks, Gordon.
That's on my mind.
Rajee, what's on your mind?
Well, I have two things I want to say. I have my Pride shirt on today, even though Pride Month is over. For LGBTQ people, I think we really have to continue the spirit of pride every day of the year. And I want to say something about Caitlyn Jenner. I spoke about her earlier. You know, I think what Caitlyn did do for our community is when she came out and she had the cover, I think it was Vanity Fair, and it was like international news. I think Caitlyn made people that wouldn't have even taken 2 minutes to look at our community stop and look. Joe Blow from some boondock part of America that didn't give two craps about our community. When Caitlyn came out, she made the world stop. It was like, oh my God. Oh my God, here you have an Olympic athlete saying that now she has always felt like a woman. That was monumental for our community. And I tell you, I noticed after she came out in the big hoopla, going out in society, what became a little easier. Because it was almost like people looked at me and they were like, well, we're not going to give her a hard time. Caitlyn Jenner came out as trans, So I noticed a little change in the climate when she came out.
Sure.
Mhm.
Caitlyn deserves that, in all
Yeah.
honesty, because she was a trailblazer and she did help a lot of
yeah.
people. We just have to continue educating her.
Yeah.
Because clearly she
Yeah,
really doesn't
exactly,
understand the issues
exactly.
of the trans community.
She's a product of her environment.
Absolutely. Well, that's it, America. Translation. This unique forum is a first ever experiment to bring the trans community voice forward. Whether politics, healthcare, mental health, entertainment, and the countless other streams of the trans community and your lives, Translation will be here to explore it, to talk about it, to laugh and to cry. We are in this together. You are not alone. We end tonight's show with what we call Translation Challenge, to simply help the trans community to have an opportunity to say goodnight, to remind us how incredible the world of trans really is. So we'll start with a goodnight from Misty Eyez.
Honey, I want you to look in the mirror and say that I am beautiful, because you're talking to yourself. Like we talked about on tonight's show, being transgender is biological. It is genetic. It is scientific. And if you are a person struggling with thoughts and feelings of your gender identity and it's something that plagues your mind, you are not alone. You are surrounded by people on this show that have been there, done that. And you might not have people in your life that understand you, but I promise you, there's nothing wrong with you.
Thank you, Misty.
Beautiful.
A good night from Ariana Lint.
Well, I want to say thank you so much and good night, buenas noches to everybody, my gente latina. I don't see you subscribing over here in the YouTube channel. You have to subscribe and support us because we needed growing up in this program. And this program we're doing with amazing, with a lot of passion and everything, and it's very important for you. We're trying to keep it and going forward, but when your help is so crucial and is important. So please subscribe over here, you see over here, and YouTube channel, and you can have notification when we have a program.
It's actually right under you.
Oh, okay.
Just go like this.
Now, ring the bell.
Right. A good night from Gordon Woodworth III.
Well, I've just been thinking about this because I'm a pagan person, as we've already stated, and the next closest event for us that's happening is the new moon, which is for most traditions a time to think about things that you want to grow and what your intentions are and what you would like to see, what you would like to manifest in your life. So for everybody out there, whether you believe in this sort of thing or not, now's the time. Take a moment, take a breath, and think about what it is that you want to try and work on and what you want to try and improve in your own life. And that's for everybody, not just trans people.
When's the new moon?
It's on the 9th. And if you don't have anywhere to go to celebrate it, you can go on altvr.com and check out a channel called Pagans in VR. And we have a public ritual there that anybody is welcome to attend, whether you are a pagan or not.
Shameless plug is welcomed. Awesome. And now a good night from Rajee Narinesingh.
So when you think about family, you think about people that are supposed to support you, uplift you, love you. And oftentimes we're born into family units that you don't always get that.
Sure.
That goes for all people, but a lot of LGBTQ people deal with being ostracized and, pushed to the curve and disowned by their family. And, when you're in a family unit that doesn't support you, and maybe you have a difficult mom or a difficult dad, there's lessons that you can learn. Maybe that teaches you how to deal with difficult people in life. But at some point, and this, my minister at church on Sunday, he says, if your family doesn't support you, run. Run for the hills. You can love them from afar. And, you can create your own family. And that's what many of us LGBTQ people have had to do. So, if you're not being supported, create your own family. Love, peace, and blessings.
Absolutely. Those chosen families are what make us stronger.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, that's it. And a special good night from Ariana's Center, the sponsors of Translation.
We need your help to support this broadcast. We invite you to reach out to sponsor, share this amazing show. Are you going to help the trans community?
Hey, L's, G's, B's, and Q's. Are you going to support your T's? If you believe that trans rights are human rights, then translation is for you.
Share this broadcast, talk about it, like it, and tell the entire LGBTQ community and our allies there is something new.
Fox News cannot be the only voice. The trans community deserves more.
We hope you agree. If you do, we will see you every Thursday night at 9 p.m. providing translation. Good night.
Night. Translation.